This is Ash. The cat distribution system saw to it that I had him in my life. I found him right in the middle of the road. I stopped, brought him in, and he's been, well, my companion ever since. Salutations, nerds! I'm Rick Y, the wise guy, and today is still December 9th, 2024, and it's volume 2 of the analysis of the interview between Kristen Welker and Donald Trump over the weekend, where she helped him stumble through his own understanding of tariffs and his explanations on how he would use them to bring down prices and inflation. So if you dig what I've got to hand out, diddle that little like and subscribe button, and for updates as fast as I can deliver them for now, hit that little notification bell as well. I'd be much obliged. This one might have a little bit of body to it, and the problem is I cannot get through any of it without covering some of the things that just go completely unsaid. And so now we're in the interview where Trump is explaining to Kristen Welker how the tariffs would be an economic savior. She made sure to actually specifically ask if he would punish CEOs and businesses if prices don't, in fact, improve. Trump then went on an incoherent diatribe about how the market would take care of it, and if they don't, we'll just adjust it, which is simply a vague statement that means if the corporations don't front the bill, I will publicly blame them for all the high prices, which, incidentally, it turns out is exactly what his opposition has been trying to do and demonstrate already for the past 4 years now, and somehow it's fallen upon deaf ears. But he made sure to make a quote that, again, I really want you all to hold him to, specifically those of you who voted for the man. I'm not going to blast you for having done so because we're too busy, didn't really pay attention. But I'm not going to suffer those who will not hold him accountable when he inevitably breaks his promises. Specifically the one where he says, tariffs are going to make our country rich. Tariffs are going to help us pay off $35 trillion in debt. And tariffs are going to make our country safe. These were 3 remarkably insane statements. Tariffs don't make anyone rich. They commence and perpetuate trade wars, which raises inflation. Tariffs are not going to help pay off $35 trillion in debt. Not to mention, again, if that's the benchmark he wants to set for his administration, I'd love to see it. I would love to get proven wrong in thinking that he would never be able to pay off $35 trillion in debt. But hey, his words, right? Not mine. Then he said tariffs are going to make our country safe, and cited China specifically as a potential threat in this domain. I don't know who needs to hear it, but China isn't a threat. I know there has been this consistent drumbeat about it, but they don't threaten us. They're a near peer adversary. China doesn't want a war with the United States. Let me just say that I have it on very strong authority when I say that when American forces are anywhere near Taiwan, Chinese forces tend to just kind of go other places and stay in their lane. It's the damnedest thing. But he continued to weave through this by saying that we have this huge influx of migrants from both Canada and Mexico, which isn't happening anywhere close to the numbers he claims. And then he tried to dunk on Trudeau for coming down to visit him in Mar-a-Lago. Now, I can't say for certain, because who knows what neat little things they can do at such high levels of government, but there was an amusing little bit of scuttlebutt about Trudeau coming down to Florida because, as a felon, Trump can't legally enter Canada. Again, I don't know the legitimacy behind that, but it's worth mentioning in case we see more, we'll say, domestic meetings between world leaders in the next 4 years. He tried to wax on the drug epidemic, which, as has been mentioned by every expert, anything that gets trafficked in primarily is done so through legal ports of entry, not our border. Burning Canada for our drug problem is pretty stretchy mental gymnastics. Mind you, the only drug problem that we have with Canada is that as Americans, we're pouring over their borders to get their prescriptions at cheaper rates because we have a for-profit system in America that incentivizes denial of care. He warned the Canadian leader that he would receive tariffs at 25% if his imaginary complaints weren't met with satisfactory results. I get this wording right because this is exactly what he said. He went on to say that he called the border and got things down to a trickle within 10 minutes of calling the border. Interestingly enough, though, border apprehensions and crossings have dropped by like 75% over the past year, while Biden has been in office, but don't mind that. So these results that he's speaking of, he's lying. He's flat out lying. He's manipulating you again. It is unreal how very public this little dispute with our partners turned out, that they pressed him that were he were to impose tariffs, it would only spark retaliatory tariffs and we would wage a trade war. Again, with the people that he brokered the last trade agreement with. The insanity of it all is, it's head spinning. At this point, luckily, Kristen Welker knew to move on. This topic wasn't getting anywhere and he had already wasted time babbling. So she brought up another important topic that his supporters and voters should definitely lean into. It's the federal minimum wage. She rightly mentioned that the current minimum wage is $7.25. Keep in mind, the average living wage here in the United States for the cost of living should be around $20 to $25 per hour. That means just to cover the basic needs of a family of four, on average, the household needs to bring in 3 times more than what is provided. 19 out of 20 states that voted for Donald Trump maintain that same low wage as their own state minimum. And instead of commenting on previous promise to consider it, whatever that means, he admitted that it was a very low number. And he then went on to, after California, the state that I'm currently living in, due to my wife's current duty station. Yes, we are a dyed-in-the-wool military family all the way. But he went on to say that we lost restaurants and people fled the state, that the minimum wage was really high and that's why. I know he likes to come after Cali for all sorts of shit. But let me set the record straight. The dining here is incredible. Yes, some crappy chain restaurants who are already barely hanging in there didn't make it. Little places like Applebee's and Chili's, where you buy tremendously expensive microwave meals, weren't drawing in enough customers with their chic menu items, that some went out of business. But let me make it clear that there are no shortages of places here to eat, and there are also no shortages of lines at every drive-thru that I see during normal meal hours. So again, he's lying to you, he's manipulating you, and he's trying to use misinformation to create this false sense of reality, and you need to hold him to it. Now, if he wanted to touch on the very real issue of poverty rates in California, he needs to also address the very real poverty rates everywhere else. Bible Belt states in particular have seen a tremendous amount of poverty over the years. To point out California for its own poverty rates really just detracts from the very real poverty rate across the United States, and it's alarming for a lot of people. The point is that the quality of life here in Cali is much better than that found in some poorer red states. In fact, there's a direct correlation between states that have increased costs of living to qualities of life. Those with better state-sponsored healthcare and education systems are those in the more expensive states. California's minimum wage didn't go crazy, as he says. It's $16 per hour right now, and our voters chose to vote against it getting higher this year. Too bad for them, because it's going to go up anyway, at least scaled, so as not to be a shock to the system. Washington, D.C. has the highest minimum wage. In other states with comparable wages, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New York with minimums at $15 an hour. This isn't like a California issue. It's not exclusive to us. And trying to claim that it is a red herring against the very real problems that every American is experiencing right now. It's a way to manipulate your thought processes. And in so doing, he's insulting your intelligence. Stop tolerating it. So after shitting on the Golden State, Trump vaguely mentioned that there's a way to approach the minimum wage, but he just doesn't know how he's going to do it. This is after promising this since 2020 and before. And he has no idea how he's going to do it. He has also said that you can't do anything with a federal minimum wage on a federal level because different states have different costs of living. Fair. But that still doesn't address the situation because even in Alabama, like he cited, the example he used, the cost of living for an adult without dependents is $13.77 an hour, almost twice as much as the current minimum wage, regardless of its low cost of living. These are poverty wages and perpetuate cycles of attacking poor people and not the actual problem. Poverty. Again, these examples are just red herrings. So for those of you who need to hear this, yes, even people in poor states deserve a wage that allows them to live their lives with some dignity. If you, as a business owner, can't afford to pay the employees after they've dedicated the only real resource that they have in this world, their time, then you don't deserve the employees. And the employees don't deserve to be mistreated like that. If a grown human being is offering their life to help you succeed, then they deserve the same respect. To try and say that increasing the federal minimum wage would have no effect, as he liked to say, Donald Trump, I would kindly ask him to say that to all the poor people I know in the South making it paycheck to paycheck without ever seeing a vacation once in their adult lives. I'm sure they would love to hear Donald Trump's reasoning for keeping their lives in the dirt simply because he doesn't think more money would have any effect in their lives. In summarizing this regrettably long entry, he promised not to fire the current chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell. I'll be shocked if he doesn't get rid of him within the first year. But I could be wrong. He's normally really great with keeping his word, right? The only way I can be sure is if we all stick together, we stay informed, we stay engaged, and we stay decent. So until next time, deuces.